won't be halted.
Outdoor adventures are good for skin and body shape, but they just ruin the hair.
I will protect.
Yes?
Let's move
What's
already.
new?
I'm listening.
I won't let you down.
You. The mistress punished me for failing to deal with you. And look, think not of me. Did I not?
My hound. You have run so long to finally meet your mistress. You are still in my kingdom, silly child. And the kingdom is alive while its ruler draws breath. That's true for both of us, isn't it? I won't step back. Not now when you've come to me yourself to fill my cup.
The hard way.
Me provoked.
My kingdom, my own kingdom, turn to dust. Become the 1000th grain for the apology. Is this mercy? Or a cruel joke that I do not understand? Let it be. I accept your gift. I'll go to the trial of the eldest and give them the apology. It represents thousands of years of insanity. This must end.
You've pleased me, King of the Sand Castle. Now that the performance is almost over, we can take off our masks. Although I'll be sad to part with them. I am a voice from another world that you've heard since you first set foot on the Stolen Lands. A harbinger of doom and change. I am dust and echo, a memory of the past. I am the one who revealed to you the truth about the fallen goddess, who gave you the light capable of dispersing the mist.
I am the one who began this story, and I am the one who will end it. I am the eldest of the First World. I am the Lantern King.
Self-appointed god of the First World. Wasn't it enough for you to witness the hardships to which Nyrissa doomed innocent people? All because of your curse? Leave us alone!
Run! Of course, that's probably not going to help, but...
You, a creature from the mortal world. You are just one of thousands of waves born in an ocean of my creation. Later over. So go, return to your fragile house, live your little toy life. Forget about the nymph Nyrissa and the matters of the First World. It's the most precious gift I can give to you. And I shall press on, The finale of my play draws near.
I'm open to your orders.
We do it my way.
Bring it before us as an offering, so that an eldest may sip from it, the curse said. Having filled the cup, Nyrissa appeared before the gods of the first world. That was when the Lantern King played another joke. He announced that the nymph, cursed for her attempt to become one of the eldest, would now get to be one. He commanded her to drink from the cup, and he was probably about to deliver some pompous speech, But at that moment, Sheikah broke the first crown. You remember, of course, that they are the eldest of time, right? They broke the crown in the past and the present, allowing the Elf King to return to his subjects and save his kingdom. A single grain of dust disappeared from the cup, and with the condition of forgiveness no longer fulfilled, Nyrissa dropped dead, having barely touched the drop. The Lantern King's performance was ruined, and the other eldest all laughed at him. Serves him right. Now that the eldest and other spiteful beings wouldn't be bothering us, the king returned to his subjects and celebrated the victory and the end of the kingdom's miseries with great fanfare. Everything gradually returned to normal, including our exciting lives. Not always peaceful, but also not troubled by invasions from another world. And little by little, our heroes and the common folk began to forget the sorrows of the past. The kingdom built by our hero became an example for all its neighbors. What else would you expect? The stolen lands became the only place where the citizens sincerely toast the health of their ruler. The citizens lived trouble-free, and taxes made it to the treasury without losses. A powerful army guards the peace. Exploration of magic is on par. The temples are flooded with their congregations. And, most importantly, our cultural contributions are at least the equal of Absalom. Just half a year after the war with the First World, Galt moved its troops to the southern border of the kingdom. Their attack was rebuffed. The enemy state's infantry could do little against soldiers who were skilled with their swords and knew the military arts better than the alphabet. Since then, Galt hasn't risked crossing any borders again, fearing cruel retaliation for further insolence. The king's subjects praise his generosity, while citizens of neighboring lands groan from crippling taxes. Citizens of the stolen lands have it pretty good. Truth be told, the treasury isn't always capable of paying the royal bills. And the throne room's adornments are clearly decaying. But sometimes you have to buy the people's love. Literally. Who'd have thought that some tiny barony founded in the stolen lands by an adventurer would become a real kingdom, playing a prominent part in world politics? Of course, not everyone likes the proactive stance of this young, bold state, but the fact of the matter is, they can't afford to ignore the king and his diplomats. The king became a true patron of fine crafts. Over time, the castle treasury filled with wonderful gifts from the best masters in the area. Armor, weapons, even magical artifacts, and the collection is still growing. The feud between Brevois North and South, which had been smoldering for ages, never sparked the fires of civil war. Through great effort, our king managed to bring both parties to the negotiating table. While Rostland didn't gain its independence, it did receive wide autonomy rights. Our relationships with both House Sertova and the Sword Lords are respectful, but they've become lukewarm. Because of us, neither side got everything they wanted. Led by careful, level-headed Dugoth, the Tiger Lord's tribe reunited and started to lick the wounds left by the erratic Armagh. Little by little, they once again became one of the strongest mercenary armies in the region. Dugoth always assured our king of his friendship, but the king always stayed on his toes, understanding that anything could happen when that old fox is around. Pitax almost returned to its former state, a joyful city filled with beers of dubious quality and deals of questionable legality. The old trade houses lost the crown, but they retrieved the property Iravetti had taken from them. Soon, Pitax became almost like a second capital in the kingdom, a thriving city through which rivers of money from across the region ran. Unfortunately, we get much less of this money than we would like. Governor Lyachenza turned out to be helpless against widespread embezzlement. Amid chaos and fighting, Headmistress Gitaren managed to preserve the Academy of the Arts, though not its reputation. Only sycophants willing to dash off odes to the highest bidder, primarily our king, stayed to work and study under her tutelage. One could say the Academy still flourishes, though in the same way a pond covered with duckweed turns green on a sleepy summer day, slowly becoming a swamp. No one dreams of studying at the Academy anymore, but for those more concerned with reality than dreams, it will always have a comfortable room. Trolls and kobolds, two of the most savage native peoples living in the Gnarl Marches, were completely exterminated in the region. The forest paths became much safer, and the peasants' cattle have stopped going missing. After enduring so many storms and troubles, Varnhold eventually turned into a real city. Daring settlers decided to conquer the vast, wild expanses of Dunsword, and despite all odds, they succeeded. The modest colony that almost vanished at the hands of an ancient lich turned everything around to become a thriving city with lively river trading. Agay, the Spriggan leader, learned a valuable lesson after surviving his meeting with the king and even regaining his tribe's home. Don't try to occupy seemingly empty settlements anymore. Instead, the Spriggans settled across Dunsword's wild borderlands and proclaimed it as their domain. Keeping the peace in a situation like that seems like the stuff of dreams, as evidenced by the occasional lost patrols and stolen cattle. The Sootscale kobolds think themselves the masters of the area around the Old Sycamore, and they aren't very friendly toward travelers. It hasn't come to bloodshed yet, but many careless travelers have broken an arm or a leg in the kobolds' traps. When the king visits, the kobolds usually calm down a bit and even take down their traps, but it never lasts long. Oleg's trading post continues to thrive, attracting even more travelers. Much to its owner's displeasure, a small town is springing up around it. Despite Oleg's grumbling, he and his wife are well regarded by everyone, and Svetlana was even elected town chief. Making sure her sister was safe, the former bandit Kressel traveled south. Her trail went cold somewhere in Absalom's docks. They say she changed her name again and now serves on a trade ship, hiding from old acquaintances. Jod remained loyal to the king to the end of his days, healing the sick and generously sharing his austere wisdom with anyone who wished to hear it, and some who didn't. Having fulfilled his duty to the ruler, Erastil's priest peacefully departed this world, surrounded by friends and disciples. Having participated in Lamashtu's ritual, Olika gave birth to a strong and healthy baby. Sadly, the child grew into an unruly and violent adolescent. Having maimed a peer at just 10 years of age, the boy escaped to the Gnarl Marches, fleeing the rage of a mob that tore his mother to pieces instead. No one knows what happened to the lad, but legends of Lamashtu's child, who sometimes kills lost travelers and sometimes leads them to safety, are passed on by word of mouth throughout the area. Breinhart became a loyal ally and trade partner of the kingdom, and Darwin himself had been seen as a frequent guest in the capital. The elegant monarch of the neighboring kingdom has broken many hearts at court. After his visits, many young guards and servants have been seen staring through windows, sighing wistfully about something. The Fae took a fancy to the kingdom, feeling totally at home here. They often play various pranks, but they never do any serious harm. Falcos and Teresia managed to restore the magic forest. Once freed of the anger of the Scythe Tree, people returned to the abandoned village, and it became a haven of friendship between the Fae and ordinary people, just like old times. The lizard folk of the Longtail tribe returned to live on the shores of Candlemere, but they couldn't return to their ancient way of life. Living alongside people, the lizard folk adopted their behaviors, habits, and even religion. More and more of the Longtail tribe pray not to the spirits of their ancestors, but to Erastil or Gorum. They even began to forget their original language. I hope someone writes down their songs and legends before they all sink into oblivion. A delegation of wizards from Absalom and other areas appeared in the kingdom one day, asking for permission to examine the lair of the Lich Farniris the Thoughtful. After completing their research, the wizards spent a long time thanking the king for freeing the world of that monster. In their opinion, he'd been capable of causing the end of the world, maybe even 2 worlds. Evindra was glad to see the Lantern King's plans turn to dust. She spent some time helping restore the kingdom after the calamity, then returned home to the First World. They say the rebellious spirit of her cousin Nyrissa awoke within her as well. Evindra is said to recount our story to the Fae, encouraging them to question the power and might of the eldest. After the victory, the storyteller abandoned his affairs and began spending a lot of time alone in contemplation. He eventually bid farewell to the king and left his lands, but I suspect the inhabitants of Golarion haven't heard the last of this mysterious traveler, for his own story is hardly finished. We never saw Amiri again. Perhaps she got lost somewhere in the First World, or maybe she found some other way back. Who knows? I doubt that stubborn barbarian would just vanish without a trace. As for the 6 bears, they returned to the mountains, out to the farthest, wildest backwoods they could find, and lived there ruled by their primal laws. Valerie stayed to serve the king, and to this day she continues to be a muse to many people. Not just bards and admirers, but to warriors as well. Honest and resilient, Valerie is not just famous for her feats in battle, but also for her patience and kindness, which she says the king helped her discover within herself. Harrim became famous, respected by dwarves throughout our kingdom as well as our neighbors, even as far as the 5 Kings Mountains. He's often been asked to help out or teach others, and he's never denied anyone, despite his grumbling. Some people even listen to his preaching. Lucky for us, there's a lot less howling about the end of the world now, and more wise words of moderation and humility. Not all of his disciples turned to Grotus, but everyone took away something useful from his teachings. Octavia didn't stay still for very long. Soon, she and Reg went to Numeria and started a huge slave rebellion there. They didn't manage to destroy the Technic League, but to this day, slaves speak their names with admiration, and slavers with terror. Over the course of their journey, the 2 grew as close as ever, leaving their quarrels and resentments behind. After returning from Numeria, Octavia settled in her mother's house and became the king's advisor and loyal companion. Rigangar left for Numeria with Octavia to start a slave rebellion. Over the journey, he really matured and learned to understand others, as well as how to control his anger. After he returned, he took a position in the king's court. Being both formidable and charming, he inspired fear in the hearts of some and lust in others. There are even some rumors that he almost talked Octavia into marrying him, and possibly even continuing the Della Fiorni line. Tristan stayed in the Stolen Lands. Endowed with a special blessing of Sarenrae, the priest became known as a great healer and went on to perform many more miracles. I'd say the Movonic Diva deserves the right to rejoin Sarenrae's divine army. I hope the goddess will think the same when Tristan's hour comes and his soul is up for a new judgment. Ekin spent a few years in the Stolen Lands, and in that time won glory as the most rugged monster hunter in all the River Kingdoms. The ranger exterminated even the most harmless of the monsters around the capital, then moved on to other lands and new victories. They say the ruthless avenger and slayer of wild monsters made it as far as Katapesh. That's where his trail went cold. I'm afraid Ekin may have become the prey of one of his targets. Jubilost returned to the life of a traveling explorer, frequently visiting his favorite kingdom. He said so himself. His famous work studying the First World all opened with a dedication to his longtime companion, the King. Another name was also mentioned, 2Z, my guide and inspiration. Admirers would ask Jubilost many times about this mystery lady, but he would only chuckle, hitch his knapsack on his shoulder, and return to storm the vast expanses of the First World once again. As for Knock Knock, Hero Knock Knock, he continued his questionably heroic efforts in the Stolen Lands. Despite whatever mess he fell into, no matter the danger he leapt into, he always seemed to scrape through just a little better off than before. Like true heroes, he simply never gave up, struggling on and meeting the challenge of each new day with a spirit that no mishap or misfortune could ever quell. The slightly inaccurate statue of him and the king still stands in the square to this day. The two figures side by side. I've always felt that, while the heights may be a bit off, let's say, it accurately reflects the size and spirit of the goblin hero who'd been nurtured by the teachings of his king. Kalika has become calmer and wiser, but her friends no longer hear her singing by the fire anymore. If she does write poems, she keeps them hidden away. She doesn't quarrel with her sister, but perhaps because she's grown weary of fighting, and not because they've truly made peace. Canera's precocious spirit seems to have evaporated. She doesn't jeer and mock others as much as she used to, and her friends mourn her sharp wit. She's grown amicable with her sister, but her liveliness, emotional tantrums, and deep caring have given way to a calm, almost businesslike acceptance. Despite all the woes that befell the country, our king remains a strong leader. Many noble houses from neighboring lands wouldn't hesitate to be related to him, and they regularly send a variety of marriage proposals. As for myself, the author of this book, Lindsay, who never chose a pretty nickname, I'm still here, inside my creation within the Capitol Library. I live just like I always dreamed, surrounded by people and books, and not a day goes by without someone turning my pages. My story inspired many others to take up the quill. My readers have written many fierce books, articles, and pamphlets, flinging truth in the faces of tyrants. What more could I dream of? I hope, oh honored reader, that this story offered you some daring ideas, or at least some entertainment. In any case, it's time to set the final period.